Seventh-day Adventists think the Pope is the Antichrist. Rome is pretty much Babylon, right? The woman that rides the beast. Vatican, because the woman that rides the beast is the city on 7 hills mountains, and historically Rome was known as the city on 7 hills. So what's in Rome? Vatican. What does that represent? The church. And the beast will come out of that. They believe that the Pope will influence kings, governments to legislate Sunday worship. And that will be the mark of the beast. Listen. And anyone who doesn't worship on Sunday will be persecuted. They further believe Protestant churches that worship on Sunday are already influenced by the beast. You Protestants that worship on Sunday, you've already been deceived and duped by the Catholic Church, and eventually you will join the Catholic Church and you will work with the Catholic Church to bring about a one world government, one world religious system, because in their sick mind, they actually think they're not part of Protestantism. You see how sick they are? Neither do the Jehovah's Witnesses think they are part of Protestantism. So these groups actually think they're not Protestant denominations. And yet, ironically, what's ironic about this? What's ironic? The Bible they have was given to them by the Catholic Church in the West. Let me explain what I mean. In the West, it was the Catholic Church. I'm not talking about the Eastern Hemisphere. So if you ask the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Adventists, where did you get the Bible from? Who preserved the Bible? Who was used by God to canonize the Bible in the West? And where did you receive it? Oh, the Catholic Church. Isn't that ironic? So they trust God to have used the Catholic Church in the West to preserve the scriptures for them, even though they don't accept the Deuterocanonicals, which was part of every Protestant Bible up until the 19th century. 1820s was the first time Protestant Bible publishers stopped publishing the Deuterocanonicals. And up until the 1880s, the King James Version had the Deuterocanonicals. You guys know this? But if you ask them, your 27 book of the New Testament, who did God use to determine by the working of the Spirit that the New Testament consists of only 27 books? Whom did God use to preserve that canon? In the West. I'm not talking about the East. Because remember, all churches were one, right? They're all one. The Catholic Church. You know why? You can fact check me on this. The New Testament, which the Syriac speaking Christians used, comes around the 400s. In Syriac, the Bible is called the Pshitta. Pshitta. Pshitta means simple. Fact check me if you don't believe me. Pshitta. Are you aware until the 400s? I'll give you a little history. Up until the 400s, the Syriac speaking Christians did not follow the four Gospels, Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Okay. In the 2nd century, around 180, an Assyrian, Ashuriah, one of our physical ancestors, named Tatian, T-A-T-I-A-N, Tatian, who was a disciple of Justin Martyr, trained by Saint Justin Martyr, produced what is called a harmony of the four Gospels called the Diatessaron. Dia through Tessaron, 4, where he took Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, combined them, and made them one. A harmony. You understand? In other words, he didn't have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John separately. He took them and he tried to make them one to show you how they harmonize with one another and do not contradict. We still have late manuscripts of the Diatessaron. In fact, I believe you can find English translations online. This is known as a gospel harmony. Okay, are you guys listening? The Syriac-speaking churches use the Diatessaron, produced by Tatian in Syriac, where instead of reading Matthew and Mark, Luke, and John separately, he combined them into one, showing how they all agree and do not contradict, because though it's 4 different authors, they're giving you one and the same gospel, and that if it's inspired by the same Spirit, they harmonize and do not contradict. So he combined them into one, showing you you can harmonize them, and they all make sense when you read them together. See? When did the Syriac-speaking churches go with the 4 canonical Gospels? You guys know when? In the 5th century, 400s. Up until the 5th century, 400s, the Syriac Christians only had the Diatessaron, 4 Gospels into one. It was in the 5th century, 400s, they decided, you know what? We want Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John separate. And so in the 5th century, a translation of the Bible was made in Syriac called Pshita, where there you will find the 4 Gospels. Now, why am I giving you this? Initially, the Syriac-speaking Christians, their New Testament canon only has 22 books. The New Testament canon of the Pshita, the Syriac-speaking Christian communities, only consisted of 22 books. Again, don't believe me? Fact check me. And I'm going to even show you a Muslim website using the Pshita to try to attack the canonization of the Bible. And I had to write a response to it. In their canon, they did not include 2 Peter, Revelation, Hebrews, 2 Peter, Revelation, Hebrews, and I believe they did not have 2nd and 3rd John. Fact check me, because I always get confused with their canon. So they didn't have Revelation. They didn't have Hebrews. They didn't have 2nd Peter. Now, I don't know if it's 2nd, 3rd John or Jude, but check me. Fact check me real quick. Why am I mentioning this? Because the 27 New Testament canon, yep, see? Jude, right? So they did have Hebrews. Good. I had been informed, and I thought I remember they didn't include Hebrews. But thank you. Like I said, fact check me. I know my memory that somehow Jude also was not in the list, but I thought they didn't have Hebrews. definitely didn't have revelation. Now, why am I mentioning this? Why am I mentioning this for all of you guys? Well, let me explain. The 27 New Testament canon list was already ratified and accepted by Athanasius in his 39th festal letter. I'm going to give you the receipts, as well as Pope Damasus, right, in a council, as well as in the provincial councils of Carthage, right, and Hippo, which means that these cults are dependent on the Catholic Church in the West to give them the 27 books of the New Testament. Otherwise, how do they know that the Syriac New Testament list that excludes these 5 books, that is not the correct list? How do they know that the Syriac-speaking Christians didn't get it right, and these 5 books should not have been listed? So you let these cultists get away with murder. They are thieves. They are stealing your tradition. They are stealing your Bible. They are stealing your beliefs, your practices, claiming them as their own, and then using what they stole from you to then bash your church. Bash your church. And you're letting them get away with it. Here you go. They use it against me. They'll tell you right here. And as the story goes, Tashian was declared heretic, and the copies of his Diatessaron were burned. This event resulted in the introduction of fourfold gospel Syriac church, and this was called Pshitta. Pshitta has, again, a different number of books in the New Testament, and they list it out. This represents, for the New Testament, this is the Muslim, by the way. See, they're studying your history to use it against you. Pray I stay humble and teachable and holy. This represents, for the New Testament, an accommodation of the canon of the Syrians with that of the Greeks. 3rd Corinthians was rejected, in addition to the 14 Pauline epistles, including Hebrews. So, yep, they included Hebrews because they classified it as Pauline or Pauline. Following Philemon, 3 longer Catholic epistles, James, 1 Peter, 1 John, were included. The 4 shorter Catholic epistles, 2 Peter, 2nd, 3rd John, and Jude, and the Apocalypse are absent from the Pshitta Syriac version, and thus the Syriac canon of the New Testament contained but 22 writings. Now watch. For a large part of the Syrian church, this constituted the closing of the canon after the Council of Ephesus, AD 31, because that's when they were ostracized and condemned. The East Syrians separated themselves as Nestorians from the great church. Now, where is this canon followed? Pshitta is still followed by the Christians of the southern state of Kerala in India, because there is a church started by Assyrian missionaries, and there's a bishop of that church, and the liturgy is in Syriac, or I should say Aramaic. Still today, the official lectionary followed by the Syrian Orthodox Church, that's Nina, with headquarters at Qatayim, Kerala, and the Chaldean Syriac Church. Chaldeans, wake up. Also known as the Church of the East, with headquarters at Trichur, Kerala, presents lessons from only the 22 books of Pshitta, the version to which appeal is made for the settlement of doctrinal questions. Given these facts in hand, the New Testament in time of Muhammad only be either of these, Diatessaron and the Catholic epistles, or Pshitta. Since the Quran talks about the gospel, it would suggest Diatessaron more than Pshitta. They're admitting to you that the gospel of the Quran, singular, is referring to the Diatessaron, because those were the 4 gospels in one, which explains why the Quran speaks of gospel. Do you know that? They're telling you the reason why the Quran speaks of gospel, Injil, singular, not an Injil, gospels. No, that's not what they're saying. Is because the Quran, no, Sonny, that's not what they're saying, is referring to the Syriac churches and their use of the Diet Tesseract. So they're admitting to you that the gospel of the Quran is the 4 gospels combined into one gospel, which means it's still the gospel you have. Because it's nothing more than the 4 gospels combined into one. Thank you for that admission. You just buried the Quran. Because the Diet Tesseract still teaches the Trinity, Christ is God in the flesh, the Son of God, born of the Virgin, died on the cross, rose again. Yep. Reconstructing Diet Testament is difficult because, again, we only have late manuscripts, but nonetheless, furthermore, so I feel again misses the point. Whether one accepts the 22 books of the Syriac Church or the 27 of the Protestant and Catholic canon, one still would get orthodoxy. You see? You got it, right? Okay. Now, why did I take all this time to torture and bore you to death? It's not to torture or bore you to death. It's to show you that when the Adventists, the Jehovah's Witnesses, the Mormons, whoever it is, quote the 27 books of the New Testament, they are thieves because they're accepting the canon as preserved for them by the Catholic Church in the West. How do you know they're right? Why don't you go with the 22 New Testament canon of the Syriac Church? And by the way, for the Assyrians, I've been told by priests there is now an effort, right? There is now plans to then include the other 5 books of the New Testament, because this is the process by which the churches are seeking to come into full communion. So don't panic. Assyrian Church of the East, don't panic. That's why the Assyrian Church of the East will use Bibles in English that has the 27 New Testament canon list. You got it? Now, with that said, they think they're not Protestants. They think they are God's special people. They think you're a Protestant if you're not Catholic Orthodox, and if you worship on Sunday, you've already fallen for the deceit of the beast. And they think eventually the Catholic Church, working through governments, will impose Sunday worship as a sign of the mark of the beast and your allegiance to him. And if you don't take that sign, you'll be persecuted. That's what they think. So now let's go to the clip. Oh, these commercials are killing me. All right, 3. Let's start here. Let him just speak. Listen.
Be broadcast there. It's going to be on Roku and all of our formats. I'm telling you now because we're going to say some stuff I think you'll find very interesting. You might want to text or call your friends during this broadcast and say, are you watching the Amazing Facts Live program right now? So, Pastor Ho, you didn't get a chance to read the book because I just talked to you this afternoon. Right. First thing, let me tell you why I think this is so important. This is from Wall Street Journal. I think it was written yesterday. Charlie Kirk's newest book is a hit and out of stock on Amazon.
You hear it? The day it came out, Tuesday on Amazon, already when he aired this was Friday. Book came out Tuesday. Notice this came out 7 days ago, last Friday. Not yesterday, Friday before. Book came out Tuesday. Within that week, it was already out of stock. Sold out. That means they have to restock it. Do you see the influence of Charlie Kirk?
The late conservative activist book published Tuesday is about honoring the Sabbath. Kirk compiled the book a month before he was shot and killed while speaking at Utah Valley University in September. His death has sparked a spiritual awakening with a surge in Bible sales and church attendance, especially among young people.
Hear what he did? In fact, they say TPUSA doubled the amount of people this year than last year, and 80% of them were newbies. They were not here last year. So his death has not been in vain, and God will use it to glorify our great God and Savior, the Lord Jesus Christ. But there are issues nonetheless because of some positions he held. So now listen.
So this is not, I know Charlie Kirk had a lot of very strong political opinions. This is not a program that's going to delve into that. I think that everybody would agree that he was a national influencer, and especially after his murder assassination, it filled the airwaves. His funeral drew virtually all of the primary leaders in our country. I was telling somebody that if our enemies had dropped a bomb on the Phoenix Stadium during that time, it would have wiped out the U.S. government. So this is a very visible person who has written a book on a subject that I first discovered over 50 years ago about the Sabbath. And I was very eager. We've been telling people about the Sabbath truth and the benefits of the Sabbath my whole life. And I'm a Seventh-day Adventist Christian. But
notice, he's also Jewish. He became a Seventh-day Adventist. He's not, I was told, he's not their best scholar, but he's their most popular preacher and pastor. He does a show called Amazing Facts. And this show is aired on YouTube, other channels, even on satellite Christian stations. Massive influence. Now, you're going to see some of the dangers of Charlie Kirk's book. Listen.
Not because anyone in my family was. I just felt compelled from the scriptures. So first, let me give you a few thoughts, and jump in, Alden, if you have something to share,
Brother,
or if you have some relevant questions. But let me first tell you that I was blessed by the book. He comes at the Sabbath from a lot of angles and arguments I've understood for years, but there was some fresh information and perspectives I've never thought about that are great, that I'll probably incorporate into my Sabbath presentations.
You see the danger of the book? He gave this man fresh insights, new arguments to solidify his case that you got to keep the seventh day, Sabbath day, as prescribed to Israel. See the dangers of the book?
He talks first about coming from a biblical perspective, that God is a creator, that we did not evolve. He talks about the benefits of Sabbath keeping. I was really impressed that when I got down to page 115, he talks about the Sabbath improving your health. He dedicates 5 pages to Seventh-day Adventists and how documentation has shown that. And he says, I don't agree with everything they believe, but he's gone to functions with them and visited and studied and said, you cannot deny that the evidence is in, according to the blue zones.
Blue zone.
They live longer. Loma Linda is one of the blue zones where they've got more.
Noble Land devoted 5 pages highlighting the difference and the health benefits Sabbath observance makes as seen in the life of Seventh-day Adventists. 5 pages to the Seventh-day Adventists, legitimizing them. Now, he says that Kirk was plain. I don't agree with everything they believe. Fine. But he devotes 5 pages showing the data that proves Seventh-day Adventists are generally healthier and live longer lives because of their diet and Sabbath observance. So Charlie Kirk legitimizes and will now get people interested into looking into Seventh-day Adventism.
Centenarians. Mm-hmm. In fact, I think you were down there.
I was down there this week visiting those who support the ministry. And about 10 years ago, I was asked by an Adventist Journeyman magazine to go there and photograph and spend time with the centenarians. So,
you know what a centenarian is? People live to be 100. Seventh-day Adventists have a lot of centenarians, more so than any other group. From what I'm gathering, the data, the dietary benefits and observant Sabbath leads to less stress, happier folks. He gives you the statistics. Even Charlie Kirk mentions it. And they have a lot of people who are centenarians. One gentleman he's going to mention, who's still alive, is 106 years old. And they attribute that to observing the Sabbath and their diet, which they got from the Bible. Listen, that's what a centenarian is. So they went to these blue zones where there are a lot of Seventh-day Adventists, and there's many of them who are 100 years old. He goes, so I went there. Look what he says.
So I got to interview them, and it was incredible. The sharpness
All
of
of
their
them
mind.
were over 100.
All of them, yeah.
And people have seen our program we did here with Dr. Scharfenberg, who, by the way, is still alive and well. And he's 101 now.
Yeah.
101? Sorry, guys. I thought he said 106.
And so, you know, one of the reasons would be the health message in the diet.
Right.
But Sabbath, they found, makes a difference. He also talks about another general study among women, that women who weekly attend worship services during the course of the study, this was done by a Chan Institute, had 33% less death during that time.
Less death.
So one of the other things it said here, that when it came to just happiness, that one study of 2017-2018 Global Church Member Survey revealed 88% of Adventists around the world described themselves as happy. Yet a similar study in North America, among general Americans, only 44% described themselves as being satisfied with their personal life. So it contributes to your health, your happiness, your longevity.
Everything.
Yeah, he talks about, you know, if you care about the people that work for you.
Do you understand? He's getting this all from Charlie Kirk's book.